Trying to get Koresh wanted me to take some.
Well, you can. I don't mind if if you want to go up there. I think it'll be fine if you're the photographer. But I'm going to turn the spots on, so they'll be.
That might be helpful. I want to get a picture of her where you should be yakking too.
Good evening. Thank you for coming to this Meet the Candidate night. My name is Harish Chinai. I've lived in Trilogy for the last 5 years. And this is a volunteer event. This is not sponsored by HOA. And so this is something that I decided that I wanted to take the initiative to get to know the candidates. So that's the reason why I arranged this, and I appreciate you all coming to hear this evening. The ground rules for this evening are, we have drawn, each candidate has drawn a number in which they will be speaking, and then they will be having a 10-minute time to introduce themselves, talk about their experience, talk about their credentials, their vision for Rio Vista, and then this will be about 50 minutes for 5 candidates. We'll have a 10-minute break. After that, we'll have a 45 minutes open forum for Q&A. So if you'd like to ask a question, there are question forms that Deborah is going to be bringing it to me. So please now go and collect those forms so that we can have those questions at this table. 45 minutes, and at the end there will be a 2-minute closing statement by each candidate. So the order in which we have picked the draw is Patrick Byron is going to be the first candidate to go. After that there will be Don Rose, Rick Gueva, I'm sorry, Hope Cone, and then last Art. So with that, let's begin.
I think they forgot one.
Yes. Please shut off all your phones. Thank you. And please don't applaud except at the beginning after each candidate has been introduced, and then you can have the applause at the end of it. Thank you. Please don't interrupt the candidate either. So Patrick Brian, I'm saying? Byron. Hope Cone, Art Darden, Rick Oya, and Don Rose. Welcome to you and thank you for coming.
All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Patrick Byron. As you can see, I'm not exactly your typical candidate for city council. I've never had the great honor of serving in our military or in law enforcement. I don't have thousands of hours of community service or experience in land development. But what I do have is a lifetime of experience as a member of this community. I'm a native Rio Vistan and a Rio Vista High School alumni. And I understand the unique challenges that members of this community must face on a day-to-day basis. I understand the core values and characteristics that make Rio Vista such a great place to live and to come visit. I believe Rio Vista is a city with a very interesting past and the potential for a very, very bright future. But in order for us to make that future a reality, there's a few problems we need to solve first. The good news is Rio Vista is a city of great strength and resilience. We've survived through floods, fires, and natural disasters, and still we persevere. Over the years, our city has transformed itself and our local economy to meet the needs of residents and to meet the needs of local industries. The history of Rio Vista can be tied back to 3 major booms. From our beginnings as a small steamboat landing, we transformed our city into a major hub for agriculture along the Sacramento River. Eventually, that industry was replaced by overland transportation. But we were lucky. In 1936, they discovered a gas patch in Rio Vista. The gas field was developed during World War II and reached peak production in 1945. It provided jobs, but most importantly, it provided royalties for our city to fund city programs. It's been said that in the 40s and 50s, the city of Rio Vista had more millionaires per capita than all of Los Angeles. But in the 80s, all that began to change. The royalties began to dry up and the city was in desperate need of revenue. Facing pressure from the Bay Area, the city began to annex land and build houses. The new construction created considerable sources of short-term revenue. However, this revenue source was not sustainable. It created a long-term liability for our city, and when the recession hit and the building stopped, residents were left to foot the bill. As we recover from this recession, the time has come once again for us to transform our city and our economy. The time has come for us to look towards the future and to grow our economy. This city is at a serious crossroads. We can no longer depend on sales tax increases and high fees for public services to make ends meet. We must find sustainable ways to generate revenue and create fiscal stability for generations of future Rio Vistans. Our budget has been dependent on housing since the early 90s. When the building stopped, and if it stopped again today, we'd be in trouble. Except for today, we don't have any reserve funds. The city can no longer afford to ride this housing roller coaster. We need to focus on economic development, job creation, and fiscal responsibility. Our current leaders have worked very hard to get us back to where we were before the recession, and I commend them for that. Their efforts have not gone unnoticed. The problem with that is we weren't in the best position before the recession. That's why we ended up almost bankrupt the last time. We should be working to get to where we were before the mid-'80s. We need to replace the lost jobs, and we need to replace the millions of dollars in lost revenue from our local economy. We should be working to increase retail activity in order to generate revenue instead of relying on tax increases. One of the ways that I've proposed that we can do this is to regulate and tax cannabis. And I know this is a controversial issue, but the interesting thing about this is that unlike other retail industries that provide the city with a 1% sales tax that comes via the state, this industry could provide upwards of 10% that's paid directly to the city. The industry has the potential to increase gross retail sales in the city, and it's one of the largest and fastest growing industries in the state of California. This industry provides jobs, and it also provides opportunities for our local residents and within our local community. As our city grows, the need for jobs will increase. We must find ways to develop local infrastructure and improve commercial and industrial properties within the city to promote job growth. Job growth is important for several reasons. The first reason that job growth is important is because we don't want to become another bedroom community. Local people working for local businesses is something that's made the city of Rio Vista great. When you go to Lira's and you buy food, you know the person who's working behind the checkout counter. That's something that we need to protect, and in order to do that, we need to provide jobs for residents. The other key reason why jobs are important is that we need to provide jobs for our youth. What a lot of people don't understand is that one of the single biggest challenges facing young people in this city is a lack of opportunities. Many young people have difficulty bridging the gap from young adulthood or from youth into young adulthood. This is due to a lack of entry-level jobs, and it's also due to the fact that many people in our community just can't afford college for their kids anymore. Kids in Rio Vista with no job and no vehicle don't have much of a chance, and many of them get stuck in this community. If anybody on this panel is going to understand what kids and members of this community must face, it's going to be me. Now, I'm not saying that these other candidates aren't qualified. In fact, I think our city is very lucky to have such an outstanding panel before us tonight. But I think it is important to have at least one person on the city council who was born and raised in this city. To have at least one young person on the city council, and to have at least one person who isn't afraid to stand up and isn't afraid to say something and do something different. I believe the best way for us to ensure a positive outcome moving forward is to have as diverse of a group with varying experiences and varying points of view, all working together for the same common goals. I can't guarantee you that I could fix all the city's problems, But what I can promise you is I'm going to do my best. And with your support, I believe anything is possible. If elected, I will bring in new solutions and ideas. I will promote transparency and fiscal responsibility. And I will do my best to guide this city towards a bright future, not only for ourselves, but for generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Our next speaker is Don Roos.
Good evening. My name is Don Roos, and I am a candidate for City Council because I care about improving the quality of life in Rio Vista. I have lived in Rio Vista for 14 years, and I am currently raising my 2 young boys here. I was born in Los Angeles and moved to Vacaville at the age of 6. Went to high school there, and I got a career started in the home building industry. After about 8 years as a superintendent for some of the large home builders, I took a job with Shea Homes at Trilogy in 2000, and then Rossmore, and also I handled Silver Creek as project manager for all 3 of them. Enjoy living in Rio Vista, and I'm going to be here probably for the rest of my life. When I first took a job at Shea, oh, here we go. It's rigged. Okay, that was a joke. I took my job at Shea.
It's on.
Is this better? Yes. Okay, so let's try this again. I was superintendent for Kaufman and Broad Homes, actually. I took on a new job at Shea Homes and was working at the Rossmore as project community development manager out there, then, and also at Silver Creek, which is another golf course community up in San Jose. During that time, Shea Homes was negotiating purchasing this project, as a matter of fact, from Braddock and Logan, and it was called Somerset at the time. So they offered me the job to come here to be the land development, community development manager for Trilogy here in Rio Vista. I ended up taking that job, and then about 10 months later, I fell in love with Rio Vista, so I ended up moving here. During that time, I had the opportunity to become very familiar with the workings of Rio Vista and the government of Rio Vista, and was very involved in city council processes and getting tentative maps and final maps and such building permits from the city. So I gained a great deal of experience on how Rio Vista works and some of the improvements that were needed there. I was also on the Homeowners Association board, Master Association board, for a number of years, and that gave me also some perspective as to doing the right thing and making sure that you do what you say. So during that process, I moved up more and got promoted more to where I was second in command at Trilogy and at the other 2 projects. There I learned the ins and outs of the development agreements, how the process works with those. I did extensive work on the gas wells out here, and raised a big ruckus in Sacramento over that. I did the work out here, which includes this building that we're in now. And I did the major infrastructure in here all the way up to and including the pads that your homes are on. And then the construction department took the project from there and built your houses for you. So I was pretty much out of the eye of everybody. However, I did the major components of the project. That particular career path, I have over 20 years experience doing now. And I also had to learn and deal with a $228 million development budget, which took about 10 years off my life. But it did give me great insight as to expectations of all the cities that my projects were in, not just Rio Vista, and to see the differences between those two. And I've learned how to work together and negotiate what's best for the city and what's best for Trilogy at the same time. I did extensive work with SECA, environmental impact reports, road improvement and impact fees, fire and public safety and the impacts that this project made on that. I was somewhat involved in the wastewater plant out here on the north end and a lot of the stuff that went on with that. So I understand how difficult some of these projects can be and how people's perceptions can be different than what was actually happening. Those types of experiences are going to definitely help the city council on a go-forward basis with respect to us trying to figure out what we're going to do when Trilogy gets built out and where the revenue is going to come from at that point. If we're not planning ahead of time to get some of these other projects started, we're going to have to have a lot of talks. To meet the growing needs of our community, my main priority is going to be to attract strong retail, wholesale, and commercial businesses and possibly get some industry into the city outside on maybe some of the city-owned properties out there. I don't think it's impossible. I just think that our curb appeal for those types of businesses and industries isn't up to par yet. So we have room for improvement there, and that would be definitely a priority. Additional funds will help adequately staff, equip, and compensate our public safety departments. In my opinion, the top three staples of any city are the public safety, the roads and infrastructure, and the roads and infrastructure, public safety, and public works. You neglect any one of those three and you're going to have some major problems. And I believe that the city has a fiduciary duty to supply those three services first before doing anything else. Some of the other current issues that I feel need to be addressed immediately are work aggressively to improve medical services in town. Back when I was here having shade meetings and sitting up here where I'm sitting now, the homeowners were asking those questions, and we had plans for that. They're still here somewhere. We have plans. We knew that the baby boomers were going to be retiring. We knew all of these things, yet nothing's been done yet. And now here we sit with not only not having medical services, but for instance, if I was retired, I would want my parents nearby. And so we did have a plan for a multi-story assisted living building here on the corner of Church and Highway 12. And I've been out of the loop, so I don't know where that went either. So that needs to be taken back in and see if anything can happen there. As a matter of fact, there was a big staple store, no brand, it could be Lear's, it could be anybody, and some strip malls on that corner as well, with a golf course path that goes inside, so you don't have to use your car to go over there. Dental offices and whatnot. A major thing for me coming from the home building industry, and especially one as nice as Trilogy, is
2 minutes. 2 minutes.
2 minutes, okay. I told you it's gonna happen, but that trilogy didn't become this beautiful and just happened to grow this way. A lot of studies went into what is the best, including me sitting out in lawn chairs that some of you guys probably saw who have been here more than 10 years. And sitting out in lawn chairs and studying the place and doing the best you possibly can. I believe the city is lacking in that. When you drive down Highway 12 and you come into town, you're greeted with 2 cemeteries, a bunch of weeds, and signs that are covered by plants. You're not going to get business to come in here. If I'm a business owner or an entrepreneur, I'm going to keep driving. And I see that happen all the time. So we have to first work on the curb appeal of the city. Look for ways to make the city-owned properties profitable. That's a no-brainer. And then focus on creating comprehensive and effective youth programs. I have 2 young boys I'm raising here as a single father, and that's bad enough in itself. To not have things for the youth to do in town is going to just continue this spiral that we're in where the kids can't wait to graduate from high school and then move away. What we need to do is have the kids graduate high school and open up a business in town or do something for Rio Vista. A review of the city's consultants and how contracts are administered. I only have 30 seconds left, but that's about a 3-hour talk. So rest assured that I'm all over that. I put in here that if I'm elected, I'm going to refuse a pay increase for the city council until all city staff is up to par on their pay. And I will keep city, fire, public works, and the medical services at the top of my priority. The other last thing real quick, I got 1 second left, so I can't.
Time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Before we have the third candidate, I'd like to remind you, if you have any questions to ask of these candidates, please fill out the form so that we have those questions ready when we have the open forum. So again, the next candidate is going to be Rick Gouveia. Thank you. Speak.
Bring it closer. Bring it closer to you.
Hello.
Yes.
Are you there? I agree with what my colleague Don here said about public safety and some of the other issues. Like one of our former presidents said many years ago, I'm not going to exploit the experience that I've gained and use that against Mr. Byron at the end of the table, who also had some good ideas. My name is Rick Gouveia. It says Richard here. My dad was Richard. I was Junior, so I got the nickname of Rick, and it's stayed with me for my whole life. Interesting thing about Rio Vista is that I haven't lived here my whole life, but I was introduced to Rio Vista when I was 10 years old. My dad brought me here fishing, and in my candidate statement, you can actually see a picture of me at 10 years old holding my prize catfish. And people have actually sent me next door notices saying, what is that you're holding? But it was taken with one of those brownie cameras where you had to push down on the, I know, don't say you don't know, I know you all know those cameras. I never really thought I would end up in Rio Vista. My father-in-law, who's present here tonight, was meeting someone at Sir Flair's for a luncheon, and he saw some of the homes, and he called us and said, hey, you guys might be interested in looking at the building that's going on. It's Shea, it used to be Black Hawk. We lived in Santa Ramon at the time. And so we came out here, and the next week, we put our home up for sale, and we liked Rio Vista. We liked what we saw. Actually stand up a little bit. Excuse me, I have bad allergies tonight. You probably see me with the tissue. Can you hear me? Okay. I am an Army veteran. My father was an Army veteran. My father-in-law, who's in the audience, is a Korean War veteran. And so I figured. All right. Our son is an Army Ranger. He's been in the Army. His timing's not too good because he signed up 1 month before the 9/11 attack. But he wanted to be an Army Ranger. He went through all the training. He's been there for 15. Is that it? Oh, thank you. Been there for 15 years. He's going to make a career out of it. After the military, I did 20 years in law enforcement, as did my lovely wife, Stephanie, who's here tonight. After we retired from law enforcement, we became private investigators. And that's what we do now. About 3 years ago, we cut down on the amount of work that we were doing and became interested in the city. So I started going to all the fundraisers I could, all of the city council meetings, and I found that there are a lot of there are a lot of issues that need to be dealt with. Because of my law enforcement background, my #1 issue is public safety. And that's police and fire, but it's not limited to those two things. It also includes roads. Recently, Caltrans has done a great job making Highway 12 pretty, but it's no more safe than it was before it became pretty. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with the road from here to Suisun and the cement barriers that they have that separate the lanes between here and Suisun. Not too long ago, I was driving down Highway 5 and I saw there must have been 300 or 400 of those that are just collecting dirt alongside the road on Highway 5. Most of the fatalities we've had 6 in the last year. 3 were from 113 to the Rio Vista Bridge. 3 were from the Druin to 113. There's no reason why we can't have those cement barriers. If it's going to take a while, the state doesn't have a lot of extra money. But people like Jim Frazier, who's the chairman of the Solano Transportation Agency, our mayor, who's a board member for the same agency, are saying there's just not a lot of money. So what do we do in the meantime? I think we owe it to ourselves and the people that travel Highway 12 to see if we can't get those cement barriers in. And it doesn't take that much. I mean, most of the accidents that we've had that resulted in head-on collisions were people who didn't want to take the time to come to a passing lane, but wanted to pass a double rig or another car and head on another vehicle, and ended up in a loss of life. I think we can do that. Some of the other things that I think need to be done is our city council has been working with the Solano Health Organization to try and get medical services for people in Rio Vista. 52% of the people in Rio Vista are Kaiser participants, Kaiser clients. Kaiser's interested in doing something. They have a van that they use that travels throughout the county, and they've even talked about maybe using this as their base and then having a contract with Sutter or some of the other big agencies for them to send their people in, but actually use the equipment from Kaiser. Those are possible remedies. I mean, we're not going to have a hospital here like we do in Antioch or like we do in Vacaville. It's probably just not going to work, but we need something. And their van does, you know, minor injury clinic, they do blood draws, they do x-rays, they do blood pressure, they do a lot of things. I noticed I have 2 minutes left. We also need to do something about this internet thing. You know, none of us up here have all the answers. We don't know. It reminds me of when I first started to be a policeman. I went to a police academy and then I went to field training. And in field training you had a book and you knew pretty much what was against the law and what wasn't against the law. And you had a book to tell you what the number was and it defined it. Well, there's no book that tells you how to be a city councilman other than to do the best you possibly can for the people you represent. You are all the book. Each one of you is a page from that book. And each one of you has a suggestion, an idea, a remedy for some of the things that need to be taken care of, including bringing businesses in here. I noticed today that Federal Express is hiring 50,000 more people. What they didn't say is that they need warehouses to house all this stuff that they're going to be sending all over the world. Rio Vista has a lot of property that we own, and we can offer that property. Amazon is doubling their business. They need warehouse space. They need space to be able to ship things out. I mean, we can offer
30 seconds.
Thank you. We can offer those kinds of leases, reasonable leases, but many jobs, tax base. And those are just some of the things. And I'm willing to step forward and be part of the committees to try and solve some of these things and listening to your concerns and your cares. So if you vote for me, that's what you're going to get. Thank you.
Our next candidate is Hope Cone.
Thank you and good evening. My name is Hope Cone and I was born in Philadelphia and I moved to California when I was 18 years old. I graduated with a degree in computer electronics from Merritt College in Oakland. And I currently work in that field and I am a vice president of Land WAN Services at the Bank of America, and I've been there for 20 years. I have both project manager and team manager experience for California, Nevada, Oregon, and Washington regions. I am fortunate enough to be able to work from home. I moved to Rio Vista with my husband, Brent, in 2006. Brent and I have 10 children together, 15 grandchildren, and 5 great-grandchildren. In the past 10 years, I have co-founded 2 nonprofits, including Rio Vista Youth Services, that currently runs Rio Vista Youth Center and the free summer programs. We are also raising funds for the new skate park. I am currently a planning commissioner. I am a past president of Seroptimist, and I am a member of the Women's Improvement Club. I am a current board member for the Rio Vista Little League, Rio Vista Youth Services, and Rio Vista Community Center. I call bingo for the Trilogy Bingo Club. Those of you who might know me. I was the Bass Festival chair for 2 years, and I was the chair of the American Cancer Society for Rio Vista, for Walnut Creek, and for Lafayette. As a Rio Vista council member, I will promote and work towards complete transparency. I will research every issue that comes before the city council, and I will listen to all sides, discuss, and to do my utmost to vote for what the majority of the city benefits by. I will make sure that I am available to discuss with residents any issue that comes before the city council in person, via email, or on the telephone. Councilmember Dave Hampton and Vice Mayor Jim McCracken, together with the Solano Health Coalition, have a plan to provide medical care in Rio Vista. They have done an outstanding job in getting the attention of primary medical providers. I will do whatever it takes, whatever is needed of me to help in any way that I can to see that through. I will work hard to bring new businesses into our city. As a planning commissioner, we are already looking at the zoning for downtown and the waterfront. By rezoning some of these areas, we will be able to provide new space for businesses, just like the one that went into the building just north of the old Ford dealership on Front Street. I will continue to volunteer as I do today. I enjoy working with the youth, and I find that it's important to listen to them as they are our future. I believe that volunteering is important and that we should give back to the community where we live. I am running for city council because I believe I can make a difference. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hope. Our last speaker is Art Darden. Art?
Thank you, Harish. And thank you all for coming. I'm going to take a moment to thank everybody here tonight. This is a great turnout, and you've shown that Rio Vista really does care about their community. And I want to again thank you all. Harish, I want to thank you for pulling this all together for us. It's a pleasant evening, I think, so far. I want to thank the Master Board of Trilogy for making the room available to us. And I want to thank Ed for making sure we stay on time. And lastly, I want to thank all the other four people up here tonight. They, again, show how much we care about our community and want to improve it. So we have 2 open positions, and you see 5 well-qualified people sitting in front of you. So I'd like to thank them all for putting their name in the ring and working towards betterment of Rio Vista. Also, being number 5, being the last, I'm a train buff, and so I got assigned the caboose, so I get to bring up the rear. My name is Art Darden. I moved to Rio Vista in late 2009, but I wasn't living here full-time until December of 2011 when I retired from my last and most favorite job of working at the beach at the boardwalk. I was the security operations manager at the boardwalk when I retired, and that was probably the most fun job I've ever had. Rick talked about being 10 years old when he came here and had his picture taken holding a catfish. I've got him beat. I was 7, and I have a picture showing me across the river holding a fishing pole. I caught my first striper here in Rio Vista. I caught my first salmon here in Rio Vista.
My catfish was bigger.
So then, as I grew up, I was born in Oakland and raised in the East Bay area. And I gotta mention, by the way, another favorite memory of mine was our drive out here to go fishing. It was a day trip from Oakland, and if you guys drive 680 and all these wonderful freeways, when we came out, it was a 2-lane road through the cornfields and wheat fields of Pleasant Hill. there wasn't any towns. So then the next time I was exposed to Rio Vista was compliments of the United States Army. I was in the Army, but I was stationed at Travis Air Force Base, so a few trips through the Rio Vista at that time. Next time was in the late 70s. Another fun time for me. I was working full-time, and I belonged to a small group that had motorcycles. And believe me, Highway 12 today is nothing like it was then. There were no barriers. And the straight shot from when you left Western Railway Museum to Travis, that nice, smooth, flat land where you can see for miles, it's wonderful when you really want to open it up on your motorcycle because you can see the police a long way away. Then back one more time before I ended up retiring here, in the 90s, when my children were growing up, we'd make trips to the Western Railway Museum because, again, I'm a train buff. So that's how I got introduced to Rio Vista throughout my years. I do want to mention, finally, when I was working in Santa Cruz, shortly before I ended up buying out here, I had the job of being responsible for the security detail for a local Santa Cruz radio station who sponsored a live appearance by Alex Jones. At the time, I was, like I say, responsible for the security detail during the evening, and I struck up a conversation with the lead engineer from the radio station, and he told me that he was born and raised here in Rio Vista, and he was one of the founders of Radio Rio. So, having lived in a urban/suburban environment all my life, I was anxious to try small town living when I retired. And I quickly fell in love with the community that is Rio Vista. There is so much here to see and do. So many people willing to extend a helping hand to each other. I've heard that there are 28 nonprofits here in Rio Vista, organizations who bring together volunteers to meet our community's needs. Small rural towns have problems not faced by bigger cities, but also escape many of today's problems facing those same big cities. After spending a career in business, I was always curious to find out why some organizations were successful and others were struggling. In 2013, we started traveling extensively in our fifth wheel across the country. And my goal was to see small towns and the environment because I'd flown over them so many times during my business career. I quickly realized that most small towns today are struggling mightily. Their incomes are low. Their reason for existence almost has gone away. But occasionally we would come across a gem of a small town. And so I started asking myself first, wonder why some small towns are very successful and others, most of them, are struggling. I then started taking that on as a task to start talking to people in these small towns to find out why some were very successful. I found out that there were some commonalities between those successful small towns. The first was community pride. When you went into a small town that I'll call a gem of a small town, you could tell their community pride right away by the way their buildings looked, by the fresh paint, by the clean streets. There wasn't a lot of garbage. It didn't feel like you were driving through a salvage yard on the streets around town. Everything looked clean. A lot of art in the town. So there was community pride was very obvious. to the community, to the needs of their community. The successful communities were living within their means, but also with the realization that necessary services came with a cost, and it was in everyone's interest that they were successful.
2 minutes.
They developed reasons for visitors to come and to spend more time in town. One of the great, I've found, ways of increasing a small town's income is visitors that come, spend a day or two or a week, or maybe just a few hours, spread some money around with the local merchants, and leave. They're very low. They have very low requirements on our city services, and they bring new money to town. So I think with leadership and community involvement, and I think we have both in this town, we can turn Rio Vista into a gem of the Delta. I'll finish there. Thank you.
We have a 10-minute short break. Please write your questions if you have any questions, and please bring it here. Thank you.
I guess I'm going to turn it off and then start it up again later. Hopefully it will be okay.
I think we should.